Hello, everybody. Roger here from LabGold Gold. I'm the president and CEO. And if you've watched any of my recent presentations, you will have noticed that I have always mentioned our great crew, our field crew of geologists who are working in the background and coming up with the results that I'm presenting to you in many of these online conferences. So today I'm joined by one of our guys, and it's John Clarke. He's our project manager, and he's a Newfoundlander based in St. John's, and he's really responsible for what's going on the project. And not only that, but he's been involved in exploration in Newfoundland for a long time, and worked with Noranda back in the 80s and 90s. When the first gold rush was happening there. So John, thanks for letting me twist your arm to come and do this video.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I guess that I called it a gold rush. I guess it was a gold rush in some ways back in the 80s, 90s. And what was it that really kicked that off?
Well, there was a gold showing that was found by a government geologist, Frank Blackwood, back in 1986, I believe it was. And the Noranda looked at that. They were having success on the west coast of an island, on the Baver Peninsula, that had a historic mining presence. They had ophiolitic rocks on that side of the Appalachian origin. So the gold showing came out on the east side, and they looked and they say, okay, well, there's ophiolitic rocks there as well. Maybe we should have a look at that. And there was notice out that the provincial government was doing a regional lake sediment survey, including gold. So Noranda jumped ahead of the provincial government. They did their own lake sediment survey one winter by snowmobile, and got some good results. The first gold showing by Noranda was found by Fred Keats in a place called Greenwood Pond. There was just a bit of quartz sticking out of the snow. He was coming back one day from collecting lake seds, and Noranda got the jump on everybody because they had their data back and evaluated before the provincial government's data came out.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Good way to make sure that you pick up the best ground before everybody else gets to know about it. And you were working with Noranda around that time, as I mentioned, and looking back in the research that I've done on the area since we picked up Kingsway, it seemed to me that Noranda found a lot of those occurrences that are now getting a new lease on life with the incredible exploration effort put in by Newfound Gold. So tell us a bit about the finding of some of those occurrences.
A lot of those were based on basic prospecting. First people in really looking on the ground, traveling woods roads, chasing up soil anomalies. They did a lot of panning of heavy mineral concentrates in the brooks. They had their own quaternary geologist on staff as well. So they relied at that time a lot on tills, prospecting in advance to trenching and drilling. They did do some geophysics, but it was all ground geophysics, no airborne surveys or anything like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't really that. Well, I'm not going to say it wasn't sophisticated, but it was like good boots on the ground. Prospecting, mapping, and then trenching and drilling.
Yeah, exactly. And they, it was at a point where Noranda were looking at pulling out of Newfoundland. They had a long, probably a 20-year tenure here. and they optioned their property to a company called Noront Resources, or joint ventured it, and Noront committed to spend $10 million, which at the time was a lot of money, and they end up not being able to raise that capital, and it just kind of died on the vine at that time.
Right, and then I guess around that time, I mean, there had been many other companies working in the area as well, and then it seemed like a lot of the exploration shut down in the sort of mid 1990s, I guess, mid to late 1990s in that area.
Yeah, that kind of coincided. The gold price wasn't great. Majors were consolidating. It was really kind of, I guess, the peak of the startup of junior companies, and a lot of the junior companies were headed up by people that were former exploration geologists or managers with major companies. So their focus was really on projects that they were familiar with already.
Yeah, sure. Now the other thing that stands out though is like this, you know, as you said, this didn't really start until the mid 80s. So that's that, and in terms of exploration history, that's really not very long. I mean, if you look at the Timmins camp, the Red Lake camp, any of the camps in Ontario, I mean, they've been looked at for 100 years or more. And here we are in Newfoundland, and we're looking at what a 40 year life of the exploration in that area. So why did it take so long to get that exploration going in the area?
Well, I guess historically, I mean, the first 400 years or so of Newfoundland being colonized, you know, the industry was, the economy was based just solely on fishing. It wasn't until 1898, which coincidentally coincided with the gold rush in the Yukon, that the railroad was built across central Newfoundland. And there was a pulp and paper mill built in Grand Falls in 1909. And that really started to open up the interior. Then in the 40s, Gander, the Air Force Base was built there, and the airport put in. And then the Trans-Canada Highway wasn't completed until 1965. So a lot of the main reason why it was ignored, it was just inaccessible. I mean, the only way to get into the interior is what really was by foot or by boat up the Gander River or Exploits River. And yeah, and you know, I think I had mentioned before that the companies that built the railroads and the pulp and paper mills, they, in return for putting the capital in for that infrastructure, they were granted timber rights, water rights, mineral rights for large tracts of the interior of the island. So that was tightly held for, you know, pretty much close to 100 years.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, I guess
And
the combination of inaccessibility and lack of access to the mineral title would really tied up that land for a long time. And so it's quite amazing that you know, and perhaps not surprising that we're still seeing successful discoveries being made today. And it's really, I guess, after that initial 80s, 90s exploration, the exploration up until recently was pretty sporadic. So it just seemed like there were just a few junior companies going back in and doing a bit of work. So obviously, prospectors were picking up ground and where the showings were and working that, but nothing, certainly nothing on the scale of what we're seeing today.
no, there was a brief boom back around 2000 that kind of coincided with ground coming open. The province introducing an online staking system that made acquiring ground very, very easy and relatively cheap. there was Barrick had come in and signed a joint venture deal with a junior that attracted attention from a lot of juniors, and there was a bit of a boom there for 2 or 3 years. It was kind of short-lived. There were a couple companies like Rubicon and Crosshair that kind of stuck around for maybe 8 years or a maximum of 10, doing work sporadically, but it didn't last very long. You know, a lot of the flavor of the day was investment money was going offshore. The sentiment was for a lot of people that all the easy deposits in Canada were already found, and you had to go to South America, Eastern Europe, wherever. You know, that was the flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. I was part of that.
Yeah.
Going elsewhere, but I do remember the Barrick and I think it was Altius and Candente. They were. I remember they were looking at Collins style deposits, so exploring for Collins style deposits out in the area, right?
Yes, that was one of the targets. There's a property just south of Glenwood. It's called the Outflow, and that had some similarities to Carlin style alteration and mineralization, and that's really what sparked the interest of Barrick at the time.
Yeah, because they were doing a lot of work down in Nevada, of course, and so they would have been interested to look at that. So here we are today, and we've got quite a few companies, all junior companies involved in the area, and sparked a newfound gold discovery last year. It sparked off a bit of a staking rush. With a lot of land being tied up now, pretty much all the exploit zone, I think, is probably, or anything that looks prospective is already staked up. And so do you think that this has sort of surpassed the activity in the 80s, or was the activity in the 80s like similar in the number of claims that were held, the number of companies that were working, or are we looking at something a bit bigger today?
Oh no, absolutely bigger. I mean, there was a fair amount of ground acquired back then, but not like today.
Yeah, that's the sort of impression that I have as well. That and there are a lot of companies out there that have staked up a lot of ground as well, and it's going to be interesting to see them exploring all that ground. But I mean, we're very focused on our Kingsway project, and we were lucky enough to make a discovery last year. Maybe not entirely lucky. I mean, obviously the great work that you guys put in enabled that to happen. So, but I think even the best work needs a little bit of luck to get over the line as well. So I think that was good. But just to finish off, looking back to the 80s and 90s, and now through the time and what we're seeing today, what do you think the potential of the district is? How big could it be?
It's going to be a game changer for the province. I think a lot of the I won't call them missteps, but some of the main reasons why things haven't been found before. I mentioned about accessibility and access, but also I think now we have much better technology, better access to even. I mean, when you think about it, back in the 80s, ICP analysis for soil samples was just in its infancy. And some companies, including Miranda, at times didn't even analyze for trace elements or pathfinder elements. So I think now I think in the in Down the road, when a book is written about the how this gold camp evolved, is going to be an interesting story. And there's, a lot of it just comes down to, like everything in life, timing. And I think our timing is great right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And just to add to some of the, we have the ICP, but like some of the technology that we're using with the portable XRF, getting an idea of what's in the samples right away. We know that the labs are delayed, well, six to 8 weeks these days, sometimes more. So having something like a portable XRF to at least give you a sense of what might be in the sample, even if it's not quantitative. Those kinds of techniques are truly valuable. But I think you're right. I think it is going to be a huge boom for the island, and it's we're really happy to be part of it, and hopefully we'll be part of the success of it as well. Okay, John. So that's a great history lesson, and I'm glad you're so enthusiastic about the future of the district. And I think obviously I share that enthusiasm, and we'll, like I say, we'll do our bit to add to the activity and the hopefully the discoveries that are going to be made over the next few years. I forgot to comment on your hat, John. I love it.
Oh, okay.
LabGold hat. Yeah, you're wearing the right hat.
Yeah.
All right. See you, John. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Have a great day.